Welcome to today's video. In today's video, we are recapping some of the tips and tricks from my previous video and putting them to action in a sunset POV around Old Montreal. If you're really looking for some behind the scenes of street photography and what my approach to street photography is, that is really what today's video is about, and I am very excited to share it with you. So with that, let's jump on into it. All right, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Wunder. I am a street and travel photographer based in Toronto, and on this channel, we talk about how to live a more creative and impactful life. Now, this trip to Montreal, if you watched my earlier video, has been something that really took me out of my comfort zone, if I'm being quite honest. Solo travel, I've never really been a fan of, mostly because traveling with friends I found to just be a lot more fun. But I think with just how my street photography's evolved over the last few years and constantly shooting in Toronto, I really want to make an effort to see more of Canada, explore some of the cities around me, and part of living a creative life is doing things that aren't necessarily easy. So yeah, overall, I'm gonna say it's a very good trip. Montreal is an absolutely incredible city. I was very surprised. I really wanna get back there. But really, this video is the classic POV, put the GoPro on my chest. We go through some tips and tricks on how to improve at street photography. With that, let's jump on into the POV and let me know what you think in the comments below. So I'm gonna be totally honest and say this POV session made me fall in love with Montreal. I actually legitimately am like considering moving to Montreal or like Quebec City now because it's just so unique. I absolutely love the architecture in this city. I thought it was fantastic, and the way the streets came to life at night, I honestly have not experienced this in Toronto. Like, if you just look around in this video, oh my God, this Mercedes, by the way, absolutely unreal shot. But if you just look around, you'll see there is a distinctly European vibe. And I would honestly say that it actually has a bit more of a even New York kind of style to it when you're in Old Montreal or even Old Quebec City. So yeah, it got me really nostalgic being able to take these street POV photos. But as I mentioned in the intro, I want to briefly touch on some of the tips from my previous video. And there were 5 things that I talked about in that video. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I'm going to link it right now. But the first thing that we talked about was learning to visualize your composition. And really, you'll see in these following photos, after I kind of got a little warmed up, that I really had to place the photo I wanted in my mind before I took the shot. So this next shot is actually of an elderly couple, and the way the shot was taken was pretty candid. You'll see there's a woman's hand grabbing a child, and I was initially also trying to grab this couple in a bit more of a candid shot, and I was trying to frame it up in a way that I could like grab some sort of moment between them. And obviously I didn't execute that, but it comes with some practice, especially like this shot here. But I took the shot regardless, and then it rounded off with this shot of the guy on the motorcycle, and obviously the woman giving the peace signs. They actually had a nice conversation with me afterwards. But so the point though that I really want to get across is like why those first 2 shots of the elderly couple and the younger couple, and then that shot of the other elderly couple really didn't work out, is because you're not really going to be able to get those shots of people that have candid moments without already having an atmosphere that you're intending to take photos of, or thinking of a storyline that you might want to be able to place. And that shot of the couple with the blue sweater on and the brown trench coat is probably the best example so far of where I successfully visualized a moment that I could have captured. And while the shot is of a couple walking away and it's just of their backs, you have a really nice way of framing them up with the 2 buildings to the left and the right. You have that tower in the background, and overall, I think you really capture a mood with that versus the other 2 original shots were just 2 people standing in a market, for example. And that really goes to show that the visualization technique of how you're impressing your own thoughts of a storyline into where you're taking photos of really makes all the difference in how you take photos. Especially with this shot of Cafe Olympico, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say like you need to learn how to visualize. Really here, you're looking to capture what the ambiance of the evening is, and it's just, you know, a group of friends hanging out in a window of a restaurant, having having a casual drink, and that's the visualization. It's like, what's the story that you're looking for when you're taking photos? And that's really what was going through my head here. So the next shot coming up is of a street vendor, a violinist, and I'm going like, okay, well, if I'm gonna make a photo set, I'm going to need to grab some sort of cultural element. And then this shot was probably my favorite shot of the entire day. This girl just looking off into the distance, watching the violinist. Like, that was probably one of my favorite street photos I've actually taken in a very long time. And it's really just because I have this image in my head of like people walking around, going on dates, like eating delicious food, partaking in this older city culture. Like this guy sitting here now smoking, come on. I really couldn't believe I got this shot. These are shots that are just impossible in Toronto. And the visualization technique then is, what's the story that you're looking for? The next theme and tip that really showed up in this video is being ready on the fly. And why I say that is because the biggest thing that changed my street photography was actually having the wrist strap that you see me use in my videos instead of a conventional camera strap. It allows me to confidently walk around with my camera really tied onto my wrist and not worrying that it's gonna fall or break, and forces me to hold onto my camera the entire time I'm taking street photos. And that means that if there is a photo that's coming up, I immediately have the ability to raise up my camera, grab the shot as I see it happening. And one of the big things that I talk about in the tip video is that this quote I read that basically says that once you see a moment, it's already gone. And this shot here with a couple looking at the phone in the garden is the perfect representation of that quote. People are only going to do something for a very short amount of time, and you need to be able to capture in that like millisecond moment what they're doing. Again, another example here where they're staring at the phone, because if you're not ready and you don't have your camera out already taking the shot before something even happens, you're going to miss the photo. And that also builds on one of the tips, which is the technique I use a lot in street photography when I'm not shooting architecture, like this gorgeous shot of the Montreal Cathedral, which by the way, smaller version of Notre Dame, but just as stunning regardless. But the technique that I like to use is called the fishing technique. And it is essentially when you wait for your subject to enter a frame in a particular way that you're visualizing. So it's almost like taking tip one and combining it with this element of composition. So you're basically saying like, you have this shot in your mind, you want someone to walk in a particular way or interact in an environment in some sort of meaningful dynamic, and then taking the shot once somebody does that, rather than conventional street photography, which really relies on taking photos in the moment and really being quick about it before people realize you're taking a shot. This is a good example of another visualization technique. The couple is composed center framed looking at the statue, and I really felt like there was a story there because they had a moment together, and really that's just what I was looking for. Obviously, another component of street photography that we talked about in the previous video was your camera settings, and I think the aperture priority recommendation that I gave is definitely relevant. In this video, I actually shoot manually for a lot of it, and that's because aperture priority is great if you're shooting when there is consistent light, but the minute you're shooting at sunset like we are in this video and the light is going down, you now have to start really adjusting your shutter speed to be able to not get blurry photos. So aperture priority, while it does adjust your shutter speed for you, eventually it'll start lowering it to such a degree that you can't really take handheld shots. So by the way, this is a good example of the fishing technique. I was waiting for a couple to essentially walk in between those red archways, and then I grabbed the shot. And I raised my shutter speed here to make sure that I could freeze the couple and make sure that it wasn't like 1/30 and they came out blurry. The final piece out of all of this is to actually learn to shoot street photography alone. And that does sound a little reclusive, but I will be honest, a lot of street photography requires you to really blend into your surroundings. And there are some really good courses on Skillshare that really go into street photography and talking about it as an art form, and really kind of analyzing the fact that your body movements need to not attract attention. And the longer you pursue street photography, the more you'll actually realize that the way you interact within a crowd can in fact draw attention, or the way you lift your camera up can also draw attention. And when you're shooting with other people, that is the #1 way to basically basically not be able to get those candid moments in street photography that we all really love. So it really comes down to being this solitary practice at times. There is a time to obviously shoot photos with your friends, but honestly, the best street photos that I've been able to get have been alone, just because I'm controlling my own sort of body language in a way and not drawing attention to myself in the process. Overall though, this was an absolute blast to be able to shoot photos here, and I can only recommend you get out of your comfort zone, visit a new city, and see what photos you can make. I think as a channel, living a creative life really requires us to push what's possible for ourselves, and going to Montreal just to take street photos was definitely a part of that. Okay, that will wrap today's POV. Really, my favorite photo from this session was this shot of the woman on the patio. With that, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.